Mm. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. So, I know everyone's time is valuable, especially during the weekend. So, the fact that you chose to spend it learning about the Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program, that really means a lot to us. So, for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Angela Verzosa. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and I'm also the founder and managing director of AV Immigration and Visa Services Incorporated. I'm also an active member in good standing with the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants, which is, again, the official regulatory body in Canada that licenses and governs immigration consultants like me and Mary. And again, that means everything that we're going to share tonight is grounded in current legislation, policy, and professional standards. So tonight is going to be practical, strategic, and honest. So we're going to break down how the RCIP program really work, what the officers are actually looking for, and where applicants commonly make mistakes. So again, you can walk away with clarity and direction after today's webinar. And of course, I'm not doing this alone. Mary, my friend and colleague here, has joined us today. She will be providing her introduction shortly. But before that, Jasmine, would you like to quickly introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine Newman, and I am the Marketing and Communications Admin here at AV Immigration and Business Services Incorporated. So, I will be providing assistance for you today, and I hope you have fun for today's webinar. Sit tight and hang tight. Refrain from unmuting your mic, or please do mute your mics to not disrupt the flow of our speakers. And I will be sending a chat reminder in a while, so please do read them all. Thank you very much and have fun.
Thanks, Jess. Okay, so before we dive in and I share the floor with Mary, I just want to share a little bit about myself and AV immigration. So, in addition to being a licensed RCIC-IRB, I also completed my studies in immigration and citizenship law at Queen's University, which again helped me with all of my understanding of the legal framework behind everything we're discussing today. And if this is your first time joining one of our free webinars, welcome. We're so happy to have you here today. I'm also speaking to you today from the beautiful community of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, which is where our practice is proudly based. So for those who may not know, we're about 7 hour north of Toronto and just about 30 minutes away from the international bridge that connects us to Michigan in the United States. So, over the years, I've had the privilege of working with clients from many different countries and across a wide range of immigration situations. While our office is physically based here in Sault Ste. Marie, we actually support clients all across Canada and around the world. At AV Immigration, what truly sets us apart is again our focus on personalized immigration strategy. We don't believe in one size fits all plans. Every individual has a unique background, work experience, education, and long-term goal, right? So their pathway should reflect that as well. We work extensively with permanent residence pathways like Express Entry, RCIP, which what we will be covering today, provincial nominees programs, etc. So I also want to share something special actually. So this particular program is actually very close to our hearts. So both Mary and I are actually proud Sault Ste. Marie locals. And we've had direct firsthand experience working with designated employers and applicants right here in our community. So everything we're going to share today comes not just from theory, but from real on the ground experience. So we're genuinely excited to be here with you today. So we're going to go ahead and start shortly. Let me just, one final thing that I want to say. Today's session is actually part of our ongoing immigration webinar series. So we're where we break down complex programs into clear, practical strategies you can use. Jasmine, I think the slide is not moving. It's stuck on the first page, I think. We're on slide 3. There you go. So, so we've already completed the OINP deep dive, and tonight we're tackling the RCIP program. So we're just getting started, okay? So in the coming weeks, we'll be going even deeper into the Atlantic Immigration Program, Express Entry, and federal PR application process itself, including how to properly prepare and position your file to IRCC. So if tonight sparks new questions, and it probably will, we hope you'll continue learning with us in our upcoming free sessions. As always, Jasmine will be dropping the sign up form for our next webinar, or the next one next week, which will focus on Atlantic Immigration Program right after today's session or in the coming days. All announcements and registrations are actually posted on our social media. So if you'd like to attend the rest of the free webinar, make sure you're following us on Facebook and Instagram. That's where we're going to release all updates and early registration link. Okay, so just a quick next slide, please. The agenda for today. So again, Mary and I will be providing you information about today's session. So we've divided the webinar into two powerful parts so you can clearly understand the full journey from community endorsement all the way to permanent residence. So part one is going to be tackled by my colleague here, Mary from Ubuntu Worldwide Immigration Consulting Incorporated. She's going to start with the big picture, which is the community and program guidelines. You'll learn from her how the community stream actually works, what the endorsement process really involves behind the scenes. Most importantly, some tips and watch outs that you can that can make or break your application. So this is really where the strategy starts. That's our part one. Part two, I'll take that away. I'll then transition into the federal stage, which is the permanent residence application itself. I'll walk you through all the key forms that you need to prepare, supporting documents that officers pay close attention to, and how to properly position your file once it reaches IRCC. So, because getting endorsed is one thing, but getting approved at the federal stage is another. Okay, so by the end of tonight, you won't just understand the steps, you'll also understand how the two stages connect and how to approach them strategically. So let's stay engaged throughout this session today. So you can, just like what Jazz said, you can drop your questions throughout the webinar via chat, and then we'll address that towards the end of the session. Okay, so I'm now gonna move the floor to Mary to take us away and cover part one of today's session. Mary.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Angela. Hi, everyone. Just want to say a big shout out and thank you to AV Immigration for hosting us and giving us this opportunity for me to share my knowledge and also for everybody to learn. So as Angela rightly mentioned, I'm Mary Ogenyi Goche, and I'll be talking about the Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program. So next slide, Jasmine. So just a little bit of introduction. I'm Mary. I'm a licensed immigration consultant and also a commissioner of oath here in Ontario, Sault Ste. Marie, located in the beautiful city of Sault Ste. Marie, as Angela mentioned. Just like most of you now looking for PR, I've also been through that pathway. I came in as an international student 2019 and then became a permanent resident 2021. I got my PR through Express Entry CEC. And then during my period in Canada, I've always worked with newcomers, settlement organization. RCIP is really close to my heart outside of being located in Sault Ste. Marie. I was opportune to work with the city of Sault Ste. Marie as well. And when I started my role, I started as an admin assistant, whereby I was processing RNIP application at that time and also checking eligibility. And then in the course of time, I got promoted to the local immigration partnership coordinator, where I sat on the recommendation committee to endorse our NIP application then. So like I come with like hands-on experience and just knowing how the process works for the city of Sault Ste. Marie. And then through my journey as an immigrant, I became a Canadian citizen 2024. So basically I've been through like the whole immigration cycle. Most of you now are looking for how to transition to PR, and myself and Angela were here to guide you through that part because we also come with a lived experience as immigrant. So I'm the CEO and also like the principal consultant for Ubuntu Worldwide Immigration Consulting Inc. Next slide, Jasmine. So my presentation will focus on what is RCIP, designated communities, community boundaries, employer requirement, community NOC priorities, applicant requirement, intake window, and recommendation, what's next. Then I'm going to pass it on to Angela from AV to lead us to what's next. Next slide. So what is RCIP? RCIP is the short form of the Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program. It's a mouthful. And this program started 2019. That was the RNIP, the Rural Northern Immigration Pilot Program. It was a pilot for 5 years, and IRCC tested it. It's working. It's promoting economic growth for rural communities. And last year, they decided to launch it again, but this time calling it Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program, RCIP. So it's still a pilot, it's 5 years. The goal is to make it a permanent program as it progresses after the 5 years. It's employer driven. So what do we mean by employer driven? Your employer would be the one to do the heavy lifting of, putting in your application, interacting with the city on your behalf. They have to be designated. And this program is meant for communities, smaller communities. We know that Canada is big land mass, but IRCC goal is to promote economic growth in smaller communities like Sault Ste. Marie, where the population is not a lot. That's the goal. And the goal is to address the labor shortages and strengthen economic growth. As I said, it's a PR pathway, but it's tied to economic growth. The next slide. So there are 14 designated communities across Canada that have RCIP. As I said, it's targeting rural communities. So in Nova Scotia, Pictou County, Ontario, there are like 5 communities offering RCIP: North Bay, Sudbury, Timmins, Sault Ste. Marie, and Thunder Bay. Saskatchewan, Moose Jaw, Timmins. In Manitoba, sorry, we have Steinbach, Altoona, and Brandon. And then Alberta and British Columbia. And if you look at, there are some communities that have publicly announced their allocation. So for Sudbury, they have 525 RCIP allocation. For Sault Ste. Marie, we have 300 allocation. That's for the whole year. For Brandon, there's 180. For Peace Lad, we have 60. So other communities, IRCC always give them this allocation to exhaust within 1 year period. Okay. Next slide. So if you're looking for RCIP, you have to be in one of those communities. So the 14 communities I talked about, which is across Canada. And when you look at community, remember Canada is one of the biggest country in the world. The land mass is huge, right? So for communities to make the most of this allocation, they've defined their boundaries because they can't just offer it across, right? Like we are situated in Sault Ste. Marie. And if you're looking at Sault Ste. Marie, there are different catchment areas around Sault Ste. Marie. So the city has designed their boundary. So RCIP is open for people who live within that community and other catchment areas. For Sault Ste. Marie, the farthest the boundary stretch to is Echo Bay. So if you're living outside from Echo Bay, you cannot participate in the RCIP program. Because we have 14 communities, I can't go to attach every boundary. What you need to do is go to the website of that community and then check. They have like a live interactive map that will show you the boundaries of where the program extends to. And if your employer is outside that boundary or if you live outside that boundary, you cannot participate. So always good to go to the city website and check to see how they've defined their boundaries for applicants. Just a question too, I'm working remotely, but living outside of the boundary. As I said, the boundary is what defines who participates and who does not participate. So if you're working remotely, let's say you're in Sault Ste. Marie, but you're working remotely for a company in Toronto, you do not qualify because the employer is not in Sault Ste. Marie. It's a program designed to benefit employers and benefit applicants. So the city wants to enjoy the benefit from both the employer and from the applicant. That's the goal. Next slide. So priority sectors, IRCC has given communities the opportunity to choose their priority sector. So we know in Canada, healthcare is like the first priority when you talk about priority in demand occupation. So healthcare, some communities chose business and finance, other communities chose manufacturing and utilities, then education, law, social services, government services, that is like a common priority across communities. Trades, we also know that trades is like one of Canada's in-demand occupation. So trades is there, and then natural and applied science. So some communities, you notice some communities have 5 priority. You notice some community have 6 priorities. So it's different for each community just because what may be a priority in Sault Ste. Marie, we may be focused more on healthcare. But whereas in Thunder Bay, they may be saying, okay, we have enough healthcare workers, let's focus on trades. So each community have their priorities, sectors and NOCs to suit the demand or whatever they need to grow their economy. So it's distinct. What may be a priority in Sault Ste. Marie may not be a priority in Brendan. So just have that in mind. And also just to make sure most people understand how RCIP is working. So RCIP launched again in 2026, but they've been like significant changes to RCIP than 2025. So now communities have 25 NOCs, which was there in 2025, but then IRCC is capping some NOCs. So we know that most community removed food service out of their priority because food service is not in demand. And same thing we are seeing with security guard, the 64410. Right now, IRCC is asking that if an applicant is applying through security guard, they have to have like 2 years education or work experience related to law because they are not just like they just don't want to hire anybody to fill that position or to waste the allocation. So they are really targeting it to people who have the education and the knowledge. This was not a requirement in 2025, but we know every day with IRCC comes different change, different updates, different policies. So this is one of the policies for 2025, and they are really strict to focus on priority occupations. So a common question I get, my NOC is not on the list. Can I still apply? Unfortunately, no. Your NOC has to be in the list. As I said, NOC is different for each community, and I can't just put it here because there are 14 communities, right? So you have to go again to that community, check the website to be sure that your NOC is there, and then you can apply. Also, mind you, NOCs will be updated every year because what may be a priority in 2025 may not be a priority in 2026 or may not be a priority in 2027. So communities will keep updating. And also, I have noticed that community also have like a form whereby if you want your NOC to be included in the next year, just have your employer fill that form. And based on the findings the city do, like if that NOC is in demand, they can include it to the next year. So just have that in mind that if your NOC is not there for 2026, it may come up in 2025, in 2027. Just have that in mind and ask your employer to fill the form so that way the city can get the feedback and add it to the NOC in the coming year. Next slide. So employer requirements, as I mentioned, RCIP is employer driven. So your employer has to play a part in the process. It's not like express entry whereby it's just the applicant, doing your own thing, filling the forms and doing everything. But RCIP is employer driven. So your employer must be designated. What does it mean to be designated? Designation, your employer has to fill like the city designation form where they will state like what kind of business they're doing, how long they've been in business, their CRA number, their business registration number, basically information about their business. They will complete the form, then they will have to take an intercultural training that's something IRCC brought in to be sure that employers can handle like, diversity and work with different employees from different backgrounds. So once they complete the city's form and take the training, then they submit the application to the city. Usually, designation process takes between 2 to 12 weeks of processing. So once it's been processed, the employer's name will now be on the city's website showing that they are now designated and they can now put in applicant. So for employer to be designated, they also have to be in business continuously for the last 2 years. So it's not like a new business that just came from the blues and they want to participate. No, they have to be in business. And why do they have to be in business? Because IRCC would need to check if they've been compliant with CRA, if they have any complaints, health and safety issues, just to make sure that they are also in good standing. So they have to be in business for at least 2 years, and at least 75% of their work has to be in that community. Remember, I said RCIP is an economic pathway, and the city wants to get the benefit from both the applicant and both the employer. So the employer has to be operating within the city boundary for at least like 75% of their business operation has to be within the city. So there are some employment agencies that may not be eligible to apply to partake in RCIP. For example, immigration consultant like I and Angela, we can't participate in RCIP sadly because we're already like immigration consultant. If you work like with the consulate, if you work with like an employment agency, or if your employer has has not complied with employment standards, then they cannot participate in RCIP. But if your employer is like a regular employer, they have everything, they are good to go. They just need to be designated. But if your employer falls within the restriction, then sadly you cannot participate. So next slide. So now that's for the employer part we've talked about. And the city, when they are doing the designation process, they will also be checking the eligibility of the employers. But because we are talking to applicants, we'll be focused mainly on the applicant requirements. So what do you need for RCIP? As I mentioned, RCIP is all about economic growth and promote reduce labor shortage. So what you need, full-time permanent job offer in that community. So when I say full-time permanent with no end date, so your employment letter is not saying that, oh, your contract will be renewed, you're working 40 hours, but it's going to be renewed in May. No, it's full-time permanent. It's not a job whereby you work in winter, in summer you're resting, you're working all through the year, 365 days you're working. And the job offer is coming from a designated employer. The applicant has to have English or French test based on their tier level. So if your job, your NOC or your tier falls under tier 0 and 1, then you need to present CLB 6. If your tier level falls between 2 and 3, then you need to present CLB 5. And when I say CLB 5, I mean CLB 5 in all aspects, right? I've had clients who will come to me and say, oh, I have band 5, but then you have a 4, you still do not qualify, sadly. It has to be CLB 5 in reading, CLB 5 in speaking, CLB 5 in listening and writing across all aspects. And then if your job is in tier 4 or tier 5, you have to present a CLB 4. So as you can see, RCIP is still one of those pathways that has like a very low language requirement. The requirements are pretty low and pretty straightforward. Then when you look at education, what they're asking for a minimum of high school. So secondary school diploma, that's what they're asking for. But we know that immigrants, when we come to Canada, we come with masters, we come with diploma. Some people even come with PhD, right? So what you need to do is to evaluate your degree. So the highest degree, if you have a bachelor and a master's, evaluate the highest degree, which is a master's. So this can be WES, ICAS, just get it evaluated and then you send your application. So commonly asked question, I'm working full-time hours, but not stated in the contract. Am I still eligible? So as I said, it has to be declared in your, what do they call it? Your employment letter that your work is full-time, permanent, and non-seasonal. That is the standard requirement for RCIP. Next slide. So working experience, you need to have 1,560 hours in the last 3 years. And this experience can be in Canada or outside Canada. They are not restricting you to Canadian experience. And then there is something they call tier alignment. So if your job offer is in tier 0 and 1, you can bring in work experience either from inside or outside Canada in the last 3 years from tier 0, 1, 2, 3. If your tier is tier 2, you can bring in work experience from tier 1, 2, 3, 4. If your tier is tier 3, you can bring in work experience from tier 2, tier 3, or tier 4. But very careful if you're in tier 5. So let's say you're a laborer or you're working in construction most times, you can only bring in work experience from the same 5-digit NOC. code. So you can't bring in experience from a different tier 5. No, it has to be in that same occupation. That's the only way it's going to work. It's going to count as work experience. And we have an exemption for healthcare workers. As we know, healthcare is always in demand. So IRCC is always being flexible with healthcare people or healthcare workers. So if you have work experience, let's say your NOC is 31301, that's a registered nurse. IRCC is saying that even though you have experience in tier 3 or you have experience in tier 4, that will go. Remember, if we're looking at the tier alignment, the instruction is that if your tier is tier 1, you can only bring in experience in 0, 1, 2, 3. But IRCC is giving an exemption to add tier 4. So if you are a home support worker and let's say now you are working as a registered nurse. No, sorry, back home you worked as a registered nurse, but currently you're working as a home support worker. So you can transfer your experience as a registered nurse from outside of Canada and use it as a home support worker that you're currently in now. So that exemption is only for healthcare. Other occupation that will not go through, but for healthcare workers, IRCC is being flexible. Next slide. So work experience exemption. So there is also an exemption for recent graduates who graduated from a 2-year program, not 1+1, 2-year program. It has to be 2 years at a stretch. Or if you have done a master's for 2 years or less than. So if you did a master's for 1 year, you're still exempted. You must have graduated from a DLI. So your DLI must be in that community and it must be in the last 18 years. So let's say an example is you graduated from Sault College in Sault Ste. Marie. If you're applying for the RCIP in Sault Ste. Marie, then you are exempted from having that 1,560. But if you're applying for the RCIP in Sudbury, you have to meet the 1,560 hours. So the exemption only works if you graduated from that community and you're still applying to that community. And then they said the graduate must have lived for at least 16 months in the community and studied full time. So if during your study was not done remotely, you were in Sault Ste. Marie or Sudbury or anywhere in those communities when you did your study, you qualify, and make sure that you study full time, because as an international student, you are only allowed to study part time in your last semester. So if you studied part time, let's say in your second year, then you don't qualify because you need to present your transcript too, right? That's how they will know. And then how, I already talked about it, you have to present the original diploma and transcript is required for them to understand that you studied the course for 2 years, you didn't take breaks, you studied full time and all of those stuff. So the question I get, I am outside of Canada, can I apply? Yes. So as I said, RCIP is outside of Canada, though the exemption is only for applicants who are inside of Canada, but RCIP is open to everybody across the world, those in Canada and outside, but you need to meet the requirement, have a job offer. That's very, very important. Next slide. So intent to reside. So when you're submitting your RCIP application to the city will ask you to draft 500 words intent to reside. This is very, very important. And I feel this is the meat of your RCIP application. This can break or make your application. So this basically, when it comes to Canadian immigration, we know that most times there is no interview, right? So the only way you can express your thought or talk to the visa officer is through your letters. And for us, like myself and Angela, we always have to write like a representative submission letter to the client, to the officer reviewing the file. So we kind of, give that background, explain why the person needs the visa and all. So it's very important that whenever you're doing your Canadian application, you don't expect the officer to gaze your mind to know what this applicant wants to stay in Sault Ste. Marie. How do I know? It's through your writing. So basically, this intent to reside is asking why the city should believe you want to stay in that city. Remember, they have allocation, right? So basically, this is where you draw from all your connection you have. Okay, do I have family members? They are looking for what is your pull factor? Why wouldn't you leave the city and move to a bigger city? We all know that rural communities sometimes can be boring. We don't have all those fun stuff like Toronto, right? So why do you want to stay? Basically, tie in, if you have like family, tie it into them. Like, you have family, you have communities, you volunteer in your church, you volunteer in your cultural group, you volunteer with newcomers, or if you even own a property or lease, include that in your application. That will help you strengthen your application. Also, I know that we are in the AI era now. Everybody use AI for everything. Even myself, I use AI. But be mindful that when you're doing this application, the community can review if can detect if you're using AI. So please, this is something you write from your heart. Basically, you're telling your story why they should believe you. So communities will refuse your application if you use ChatGTP, Google Gemini, DeepSeek, or any AI tool. So make sure that you're really writing and tying it back to your pull factors why you want to stay. The tip I have for you, get involved, get active, volunteer in the city, student union, church, cultural group, just be active and be there. That's the way you can tap into RCIP. Okay, next slide. And then intake window. So after you've met all the requirements, every city now has like a period where you can submit your application, and application will be returned if you submit it outside of the window period. So I can't again put all the whole 14 communities window time, but then you just have to go to the website to check, okay, what is the time, the intake for Sault Ste. Marie, what is the intake for Sudbury and all. So for some communities, they do like a draw system, like Sudbury and Thunder Bay. They do draw. They will say like, okay, the minimum point is 79 or 50, and anybody that gets that point will get like an invitation to apply. For City of Sault Ste. Marie, we do not use a draw system. You just have to submit your application within the window time, and then the city will determine based on your intent to reside and your documents if you meet the eligibility, and then give you the recommendation. So again, the best place to find this information is on the specific city's website. That's when you see everything there. And processing time, Angela and I, we've done like RCIP application for a lot of people because we live in the community. So averagely, I get response, like we get the recommendation usually 3 to 6 weeks, but the city's website, most of them will say 1 to 12 weeks, right? Just to avoid like clients reaching out and all, but averagely 3 to 6 weeks, we always get like the recommendation letter from the city. And then the employer must submit your application on your behalf. You cannot interact with the city because it's an employer led. The city will not answer you. Everything has to come through your employer to the city. And just a new update. So even though RCIP is open for candidates outside of Canada and inside of Canada, I actually saw this on the City of Sudbury's website. It says application, like if you are on a visitor record, visitors permit, or you don't have status in Canada, you are not eligible to apply for RCIP. So again, Canada is becoming strict, immigration is becoming strict. So my advice for you today, no matter what you do, make sure that you are in status. Like make sure you have a status to fall under, because if you are transitioning to visitor permit, then you can't even apply for RCIP. So make sure you book consultation with us and know what you can do, like if you're running out of status. Okay, next slide. So the recommendation letter. So this is how the recommendation letter looks like. Basically, this is what you get, and then you can start your PR process. This certificate is valid for 6 months upon receipt. So it's basically stated here, issuance date. This is when the person got it, and this is when the certificate is going to expire. So once it expires, you can't use it again. Is done. I see most people, like when I was in the city, I've seen people with, they come back, oh, my certificate got expired. It's not for you to hang on the wall, it's for you to process PR. So use it as soon as you get it. And also, the certificate can be revoked. So if you let the employer, or the employer fires you, or you leave the city, then automatically the certificate will be revoked. Or even IRCC may not even grant you your PR, even though you get the AOR and whatnot. But because you've left the city and you've left the employer, like you cannot definitely get PR through the RCIP program because it's employer specific. So next slide. So just a recap of why choose us. As I said, I come with the live experience, practical experience. I live in an RCIP community. I'm not talking from Toronto where I've not done RCIP. I'm in Sault Ste. Marie in an RCIP community. We offer full representation. We also support employers through their designation process from start to finish. We also offer DIY. So I know immigration is something you can also do yourself if you know what you're doing. And if you need a second eye to review your application, more than happy to do that. And our rates are affordable and flexible. And above all, we are both regulated Canadian immigration consultants. And how can you verify? Go to the college website, CICC, find a consultant and check. You can type our names, you can type our business names, and you'll definitely see us pop. And next slide, Jasmine. Yeah, so basically that's my part, and I'll pass it on to Angela to take us through the federal part. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary. All right. So now, welcome to stage two of the Rural Community Immigration Pilot. This is now the permanent residence application process. Okay. So if you just joined now and missed my intro, my name is Angela Verzosa. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and I'm also the founder and managing director of AV Immigration and Visa Services Incorporated. So just like what I said, Mary here did an excellent job in presenting the community-based application process and criteria. So once you receive the recommendation certificate from the city, now it's going to be the time to apply for permanent residence through IRCC. So just like what Mary said, it's not like a plaque that you hang and you put on display. It's something that you need to act on as soon as you can. Okay. So this specific step is very crucial because it transitions you from being a community endorsed candidate to becoming a permanent resident of Canada. Okay. So to begin, um, you'll need to create an account or sign in to the permanent residence portal on the IRCC website. So when you do your permanent residence application, certainly you don't really need to hire a lawyer or a consultant to actually do your application for you. However, depending on your needs, your time availability, your confidence in the process, people may have different needs around that. And for cases where you feel you need support, so just like what Mary said, we do offer a variety of support services related to the application itself. Her and I both handle the community-based application and the actual federal stage process. So you can reach out to myself and Mary if you are interested to know more about the services that we provide. So at this stage, all RCIP applications, again, must be submitted online through this portal. Just make sure you're using the correct portal, okay? So we're talking about the permanent residence portal, not the express entry profile portal, not the GC key portal, not the IRCC portal. So again, there's a lot of different portals available out there. You have to make sure you're putting in your application to the right place, and that's permanent residence portal. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the next piece would be, of course, to gather all the required forms and documents. So just to make things simple, you can actually use a document checklist provided by IRCC to ensure nothing is missed. Each form must be completed fully signed, and all answers must be truthful, of course, to avoid issues or concerns at a later time. If any of your documents are actually not in English or French, this is also the time when you must make sure that everything is translated by a certified translator before submission. So if you actually use the correct portal, so the permanent residence portal, as soon as you start and create an application in there, it will pre-populate the main forms that you need for the application. And one of those forms would be the document checklist, which you can download and then see exactly what the requirements would be for a single applicant, or if you're applying with family members included as part of your application, what are the different documents included in there? That's all going to be there. Okay. So next slide for the translation. Okay, so when submitting translated documents, IRCC requires 4 components. So first is the copy of the original document. Second is a certified copy of the original. The third is the translation itself. And then the last one is an affidavit confirming the translation's accuracy, unless, again, the translator is already a certified translator. So I know this is something that would usually come up, especially if your work experiences are coming, or work experience documents are coming from a different country. Sometimes certain countries would write the diploma, the education diploma, the transcript in their native language. So this is something that you may need to process as part of the application. Also, some employers may have non-standard native language approach in writing their work contracts, their employer letters. So these are all needed, especially if these are work experiences that you will use to support your application. So earlier on, Mary said that you need at least a total of 1 year work experience obtained in the last 3 years to support your application. So within that period, if you have a document that is not in English or in French, you will be required to do this. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so this one is just a quick information on the specific forms that will be included. So you don't need to really worry about this area. Once you create once you start your application in the permanent residence portal, this will be automatically populated as a digital form application. So specifically, the background declaration. So again, background declaration, this includes your 10 years personal history, which is very important. So if you are looking at applying for permanent residence in Canada, you have to have a rundown of all of your activities in the last 10 years, whether you're working, you're unemployed, anything. So there shouldn't be any period gaps in that specific history or accounting. You have to account all of your activities within that past 10 years. And that will be for the main applicant and your spouse and any of your dependent children that are 18 years old up until 21 years old, the ones that are also applying for permanent residence. Okay. Now, family information. So, same. So this is for yourself as a main applicant and your spouse or common law partner and members that are 18 or older. That's part of the PR application. So, family information includes accounting, your mother, your father, siblings, any of your children. That's all everyone needs to be declared in there. So the type of information that's going to be included at this stage is their full names, birthdays, their complete home address, their email address. Again, sometimes, especially if you have a huge family, some applicants tend to just put the city and the country in there. That's unfortunately that's not going to work out. You have to have at least some form of specific information included when you're trying to put down all their information, because you don't want IRCC to come back after a few weeks or maybe a few months of submission inquiring for you to resubmit a new immigration form for your family because your addresses aren't complete. So you want to make sure you do that right the first time. Travels, very important as well. You have to account all of your travel information for the past 10 years. Any travel, so sometimes, so just think about any of the travels that you did outside Canada and outside your home country. So those are the country the travel that you will need to account in here. And again, this must be very specific. I find that some applicants, and especially the travelers, those that are really consistently exploring the world, have so many stamps in their passport and have lost account of when and where exactly they went. So unfortunately, if you're in this situation, I encourage you as early as now to start drafting your list. Try your best to account for all those information because it is going to be required. Okay. Next slide. So the PDF forms to be uploaded. So the first three forms that you can see in the list, these are the same and exact forms that were already submitted and accomplished and reviewed by the city during the community-based application process. So what that means is if at this stage for the permanent residence application, you just need to make sure that you ask your employer to share the final files that were approved and reviewed by the city. So the first one, document checklist, that's something that you can download through the PR portal. But the second one, the offer of employment, and the schedule one, which is the applicant information, those two forms are from your employer. You need to get them from them. That's already signed by the main applicant and the employer, and it should be the same and exact form that was submitted to the city. Do not create a new form during the PR application stage. That's not needed. What we need here at this point is the same form that was previously submitted. Now, the last form in this list, which is the recommendation, it's the recommendation certificate that actually Mary showed you guys earlier. That's the recommendation certificate that will be issued by the city. Again, it does have the date when it was issued. It has kind of like a reference number in there. It would also indicate the expiration date of the recommendation, typically again 6 months from the time that it was issued. Next slide. Proof of language. Okay, so Mary already did a good job covering this earlier. So depending on the work, the job offer that you have, the CLB level may be different, but just to give everyone brief information about this, these are the different language tests that are acceptable for this application. So CELPIP is good, IELTS is good, PTE is also good. French, we have TEF and TCF. Those are all acceptable. And then I just put down a very important note right here at the bottom. Make sure that your language test is valid. And if it's about to expire, before or actually expired before you submit your PR application to IRCC, you will have to retake and have a valid one. It's only valid for 2 years. Okay. Also, make sure that you're doing general test and not academic, because there's two different type of tests for language. For general and academic, they're testing it a little differently. So you just have to make sure you get general, which is the one that's acceptable for immigration purposes. Okay. And then this one is just a quick information on how to identify the CLB level, because I think a lot of people are getting confused here, right? So just like what Mary said earlier, because when and rightfully sometimes if you're not really aware on how it's being measured, you really can get confused, because in the actual report it gives you an average score, and then so when people would ask you what's your score, you typically would provide the average level in there and claim that that's your CLB level, which is actually not accurate all the time. Okay, so for CELPIP, it's quite straightforward. Whatever is your score, that's your CLB level. So if you get a score of can we move to the next slide? Sorry, Jasmine. Jazz. Not sure. Jazz, are you there? There you go. So for CELPIP, so again, if as you can see, if you get a grade of 5, then you're CLB 5 for that specific language skill or ability. If you're 7, then you're CLB 7. So the way to identify your CLB score is whatever is your lowest CLB level, that's your CLB level. So it does not matter if your writing, listening, and speaking is at CLB 10. If you get a reading score of CLB 4, than your CLB4, unfortunately. So given that, you're going to have to retake the language test if, CLB4 is not meeting your the required score for your specific tier level. Okay. Next slide shows us the IELTS general training. So again, this one is a little tricky because again, say for example, you get a reading score of 4. If your reading score is 4, you're actually CLB 5. It's not CLB 4. So when you're looking at the IELTS table and trying to convert your CLB level, make sure that you look at the actual table conversion. So this specific table conversion can be found in the IRCC website. So you can easily check the conversion there just to make sure that you're aware and your conversion is accurate. Okay. Next slide. It's just the PTE score, the TEF, and then the TCF. So we can just go through this slide for the education assessment. Thank you. Okay, so if your education was completed outside Canada, so again, you'll need an ECA or an education credential assessment. This verifies that your foreign degree or diploma is equivalent to a Canadian credential. Your ECA must be less than 5 years old and issued by a designated organization such as, again, WES, ICAS, ISIS, or CES. You have to ensure that ECA is for immigration purposes, not for academic use as well. How do you find that out? When you get your ECA, especially for West, you'll see the code has an IMM code at the end. Okay. Next slide, settlement funds. So to demonstrate your ability to support yourself and your family, you must show a proof of settlement funds only if you're not yet in Canada and you're not working yet. This means that if you already have a full-time employment in Canada, you don't need to actually show proof of funds. So in this case, this is only applicable if you're, say, you found an employer, they endorse you, and either you're still outside Canada or you're not working in Canada. Maybe you're here on a visitor visa and you got an endorsement. So this is the guide. So for instance, if say for example you're a single applicant, then you need 10,507 Canadian dollars to support. And then if you have a family of 4, then that's the 19,524. Okay. Relevant work experience. Okay, so you must provide evidence of your relevant work experience. Again, 1 year, total of 1 year work experience obtained in the last 3 years. So documents that will help provide support to that would include employer reference letters. Again, it's not just a very basic employer reference letter indicating that you work there without much information in it. It has to include the duties and responsibilities of your work, the actual hours worked a week, your actual position, an indication of whether you're a part-time or a full-time employee at that time. What kind of benefits do you get or were you getting when you were employed at that time? In addition to the employer letter, any copies of your pay statements or pay stubs, pay slips, or tax documents to prove that the work is paid. And again, if you've worked in Canada, you would want to include as well any T4 slips, notice of assessments that could prove your tax information related to the work. And then next slide, passport. So you'll need to upload clear copies of your passport pages showing your name, date of birth, issue and expiry dates, and all of the visa stamps. So this includes yourself as a primary applicant and all family members included in the application, whether accompanying or not. So again, some would probably make a mistake that, oh, you know what, my daughter is not, we're not applying for my daughter yet, so we're not going to include her passport, her birth certificate. So cases like that can cause for your application to be returned unprocessed. So you have to make sure that your application package is complete. You include them. Also, as a best practice, you also want to make sure that the passports have enough validity period to complete the full PR processing. So, say your passport is about to expire within the next 6 to 8 months, and you know that the PR application process may take longer than that, then consider renewing your passport first, before you actually put it in as part of your application. Also, if you're living in a country different from your nationality, include a copy of your valid visa or residence permit for the country as well. So so say if you're Filipino living in Canada, you should include all immigration documents, current and past. Again, not just the most current permit, but all past documents, that such as if you held a visitor visa status in the past, or a study permit before moving on to a postgrad work permit, any work permit that you have, etc. Okay. Next slide. For identity. Okay, so you provide identity and civil status documents as well for yourself and all of your family members included in the application. So this includes birth certificates, marriage certificates, or divorce certificates if you were previously married or in a relationship prior to your existing marriage or relationship. Proof of common law relationship if you're not married. So, if you're in a common law relationship, you will be required to complete and upload a notarized IMM 5409. That's the statutory declaration of common law union document, along with some supporting evidences that to support your relationship. It's just the best practice because some clients would think, when I applied to Canada, we've already been common law, so I don't think there's need for me to prove the relationship. So I would still recommend adding in some documents to say any joint bank statements, lease agreements, or if you have a biological child together, their birth certificate, all that. Um, Police certificates for the next slide. So this is required for every country where you've lived for 6 months or more since turning 18 years old. So these certificates are valid for 1 year from the date of issue, typically. However, for instance, if you have obtained a police certificate from a country after departing, you can still use that police certificate even if it's expired, as long as you did not travel back to that country. Okay. You can also submit your application without them. Say you don't have a copy yet. That's fine. But just know that IRCC may request them later, which could potentially mean some delay in the processing time of your application. Okay. Next slide. So digital photos. So you must upload one digital photo for yourself and each family member as well. Again, even if they're not coming to Canada, you need to add their photos in here. There is a photo specification that you can visit in the IRCC website. So again, don't edit an existing photo and put that as part of your application. You've spent so much effort, time, money to put in just to get to this stage. You don't want your application to be rejected just because you don't have good digital photo. So please get your photos professionally taken. Go to Staples. They know how to do it well. Get the actual file and then use that file to be attached to your application. Okay. And then the fee payment here, after you paid it, you should be able, there's actually a link, an online link where you can pay your fees. So in the PR portal, when you scroll down to the fees section, there's a link there, direct link. You just need to click that and it will bring you to a page for you to select the type of application. So you just need to put down you're applying for rural community immigration pilot program. Put down if you add in your spouse, if they're applying with you, if you have a child, add it in, and then make sure you add biometrics as well. A lot of people are actually making that mistake of not putting in biometrics, thinking, my biometrics is still valid for 10 years. The biometrics for temporary residence is different from the biometrics for permanent residence. So what that means is if you're applying for permanent residence, IRCC would want to get new biometrics from you. Okay, so make sure that's there. Once paid, download the receipt, and that receipt you have to attach to your application. Okay. And then next slide, fees is it's the same. I covered that already, so we'll go to the tip. So proof of community ties, I think Mary slightly covered this as well. So other than all of the information included in a document checklist, as a best practice, I always recommend to add additional documents to support your community ties. Because again, this is one of the tests that the IRCC officer would review during your application process. You want to be able to demonstrate that you're not just applying for the RCIP to get the PR status, and then you go to Toronto, you go to Vancouver or any big cities that you really want to live. So any of the documents that I've included in here could potentially be a good document to support. Again, every lifestyle is different, so that's where Mary and I would come in when you reach out to us so we can advise you properly. But certainly these are the standard documents that you could add in. Okay. And then lastly, for the optional work permit. So I know earlier we said that once you get your recommendation certificate, you can use that recommendation certificate for this PR application. But other than submitting a PR application, you can actually use that recommendation certificate to extend your status, yours and your family's status in Canada, especially if you don't have enough authorization left for you to actually wait for the PR application to be completed. So say you are on a postgrad work permit presently and you apply for a work permit under the RCIP. That means from having an open work permit, you're now going to apply for an employer restricted work permit. So the RCIP work permit is restricted to the employer that provided support to your application. That's for the main applicant. The spouse will continue to have an open work permit, typically restricted within the community that you're applying for. So what that means is they will have open work permit, say, within Sault Ste. Marie. So that's what's going to happen. For the children, their study permit will be extended and then good for primary or secondary within the community of Sault Ste. Marie. So that's how the extension would go right here. But it's really a great program to actually bridge you, especially if you don't have enough uh, time left for your authorization of stay in Canada. It is an LMIA exempt work permit, which means your employer does not need to apply for an LMIA for it. They just need to complete certain steps as part of the process to support you. But overall, fairly easy steps. They just need to upload your offer of employment to the IRCC portal, get a reference number, and pay the employer compliance fee of $230, and you should be good to go. Okay. All right. I know we're over time, so I apologize, but thank you so much for staying this long if you're still here with us. So I hope this webinar has given you valuable insights on how you can prepare for this exciting opportunity. But we'll open the floor for some questions. Let's see. Do we have questions in the chat? Let me see. Okay, so there's one here, watching from BC, Jason. Hello. So my wife and I are willing to relocate, live, and work there permanently. Can you help us recommend or find an employer under either retail and food services for tier 2? Thank you so much in advance. Okay, so while Mary and I are able to provide assistance for immigration related services, like, assist your employer for designation, endorsement of candidates, we are, recruiting and job placement is actually outside our practice scope. So we're not going to be able to provide assistance to match you to any of the employers locally. I wish we have that capability, honestly, because we really want to help out, make sure that our community continue to thrive as well. However, that is something that we cannot help. However, based on our clients' feedback, they do get a lot of success in looking for opportunities when they frequently visit the local website to try and find out who the top employers are, who the designated employers are. Because again, depending on which community you want to go, say in the Sioux or in Sudbury, in Thunder Bay, wherever that may be, they have different designated employers. So I think that's the first good step to try and look and see who are currently hiring and looking for positions. From Sudbury, Renee, hi. My employer is designated in Sudbury, but my job position is not on the priority occupation list. What should my employer do to make my position eligible, or can I apply through OINP instead of RCIP? Mary, you want to take that question?
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Renee, for asking. So, if your job is not on the priority NOCs, that means you cannot apply for that year because, as I said, it's done every year, right? So 2027, they'll have a new priority NOCs. So what I can say, your employer should go to the website and fill out the form if it is for Sudbury, and just let them know that your occupation is also compulsory, like or in demand, like in the community, and that way the city can review it to determine if they want to add it to the list for next year. That being said, not everybody will get their PR through RCIP. ONIP is an option, express entry is an option. If you're not there right now, maybe you may qualify for ONIP. Like, I don't know your full details. So if ONIP is available, like if your employer is willing to support you, please go ahead and explore that option. Okay, than waiting for 2027, for your NOC to be on the list. Okay?
Yep. Perfect. Thank you, Mary. And also, Renee, just to add to what Mary said, OINP remains to be a very good option. If you think about it, yes, true that the processing time is significantly longer compared to RCIP, because, me and Mary, sometimes we get surprised by the processing period. We have clients that are already permanent residents as quick as 3 months sometimes. But again, different cases, different timelines, but it is very quick versus OINP that, sometimes it can take a year and a half, sometimes up to 2 years for it to be fully processed. So it is still very lucrative, especially if you're in the Northern Ontario region, because every time OINP releases nominations, they target our location, right? They want people to go to Northern Ontario. So sometimes they don't even have specific NOCs that they're targeting. They're just targeting for as long as you have a job offer in the Northern Ontario region, and you meet the cutoff of the points, then you're going to be invited. This is how some of the retail salesperson, people working in retail, food services down south in Toronto get invited when they move here in Sault Ste. Marie, in Sudbury, or Thunder Bay, because again, there's no occupation specific selection, just that, you're working in Northern Ontario would be a great advantage already. Okay. Joanna, hi. I just want to ask your personal tips or advice on job seekers for healthcare jobs in Sault Ste. Marie. Also, is it allowed and legit for immigration consultants to offer jobs like when they're working with designated employers? Um, I'm not sure.
So I'm saying like there's a second part to her question if you want to read down.
Okay, because a friend of mine saw a Facebook post where she got attracted to because they said that they have designated employers hiring. When we search their RCIC numbers, it is registered, but on my understanding, this is not allowed. Um, Sometimes there are some RCICs that are recruiters as well. So, is there a website where they can check if they're a legitimate recruiter, Mary? Do you know?
No, I don't. No.
Yeah, but I can tell you that there are some licensed consultants that are also licensed recruiters. Okay. For me and Mary, we don't want to cross the recruitment side of the story. That's why we're staying in the immigration part. But there may be some consultants like that. So I'm not gonna generalize and say it's not legitimate. Although I don't have any suggestions on how you can prove they are legitimately registered as recruiters, because I'm not aware. Maybe that's something that Mary and I will need to research to be more knowledgeable. But at this point, yeah, I can tell you it is possible. Okay.
Just to add, Angela,
Yeah.
if they are licensed recruiters, they'll also have license numbers. So probably ask for their license number and do that finding. But from what I'm understanding, you're saying that because I know I mentioned in my slide saying that immigration consultants are not allowed to participate in RCIP.
Mm,
That means, for example, let's say I or Angela have an employee, we cannot put them through RCIP. But if the consultant is connecting you with an employer, let's say the consultant is connecting you with Sioux Area Hospital to get a job, then it's allowed. But the consultant cannot hire you for our own practice and put you through RCIP. That is where it's not allowed, if that gives more clarity.
yeah. So example, if Jasmine, my staff, would want to uh, apply for permanent residence here in Sault Ste. Marie, I cannot endorse her to the city as an employer because I'm not allowed to, because the nature of my business is immigration. So we're just blocklisted that way. Hi, so Sky, hi. From Nova Scotia, my ECA is only equivalent to a high school certificate. Can I take the Canadian Adult Education Credential to comply with a high school diploma? Um, you want to speak to that, Mary? Because I do have some clients that are doing it, but I'm not very knowledgeable on what the process would be. Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, but if your ECA is already equivalent to a high school certificate, that should go for RCIP, right? Because RCIP is a minimum of high school
Oh yeah.
certificate. Yeah. So because ECA is what will tell you if your degree from the Philippines, Nigeria is equivalent to Canadian standards. So if it's just a one line, if they say your certificate from the Philippines is equivalent to a Canadian high school, then you're good. I don't know if there's more to that. So,
Yeah.
immigration is always like a rabbit hole. One question leads to another, but I don't know if there's more to that. So,
Is that it? So Sky, the ECA is already high school. I read it like not high school, so that's why. But it is already, if it's already high school, then there's no need. Mary's right. But if it's not high school, let me see. If it's not high school, then I think there are programs on how you can get high school credential. It's just that I'm not very familiar with how that process would look like. I would probably recommend to reach out to, I don't know, the city to ask for like specific contact, because different cities will have different ways on how to do it. They may also have different ways on handling education like that if you're a foreign national versus you're a local, right? So if you want to check that with them, that will be I think my preference. Um, one second. So one more question. The Sault Ste. Marie RCIP has point system. Other RCIP has it. We there would probably is the point system. It's just not published. It's not as transparent compared to Sudbury, who has a scoring grid. North Bay has it. Thunder Bay has it. Like most of the communities would proudly present it maybe for transparency, but here in the zoo we don't have it. I'm not sure why, but Mary was involved in the the review process before, and I'm pretty sure they do use this grid. Mary?
So for the last RNIP, it was minimum of 70. But that being said, I totally agree with what you said, Angela. It's not really transparent, and that's the more reason why when you're submitting your application, you give them everything. As I said, your intent to reside has to be really, really solid because that is what, based on that, that is what they're going to review. So yeah.
Okay. We're from Thunder Bay. We're refused by RCIP federal because of knock. Can we appeal to our IRCC about the result? Can we still try the 2 years work permit? My company apply it, and how can we check? Okay, so I think there's a lot of things going on in this specific question. So you may want to schedule a separate consultation with myself and or Mary to have this dissected. But the way I understand is, um, if IRCC already refused the PR application, that could potentially mean they've reached out to you, provided you um, a letter to ask you to explain and justify the NOs, because sometimes they would do that to send you a letter to let you know that there's some inconsistencies that they want. You provided your answer, but they're still not convinced. So it's hard to provide advice if we don't know exactly what was declared, how it was declared, and what exactly IRCC said when they refused the application. So this is something that's very case specific that unfortunately we can't answer right now. So it has to be consulted separately, Anne. Okay.
Just
This
to
is
add to that,
yeah,
Angela,
no, go ahead.
this just shows how sensitive PR application can be. A little mistake can lead to refusal. And when it comes to PR application, it's not like study work permit whereby they are generic. If there is a refusal, the officer's note is really clear to the point. I've had clients who had refusal and it's because of NOC. So please, I know sometimes we try to, we want to save money. We don't want to use a consultant, but this is, having a consultant look over those applications would go a long way to strengthen your application. So right now for PR, no reconsideration if the error is not from the visa officer. I don't know if your certificate of recommendation is still valid for you to reapply.
Yeah.
If it's expired, then you have to go back to the pool again. So
Mhm.
again, it's just, I know immigration is something you can do, but sometimes having a professional makes a lot of difference. I'm not trying to say use us, but I'm just putting it out there. Whoever you use is totally fine, but like a little mistake can lead to refusal, just to let you know.
Yeah, yeah, great. Um, One more question from Joanna here. What will be your advice on how to make the intention to reside stronger if I don't have any relatives at all in Canada and single? So um for intention to reside, there's a lot of things, right? So do you have any hobbies? Do you have ties to like a cultural community group? Are you actively attending any of those? Because again, the intention to reside is more for you to actually demonstrate reasons why not only you're qualified but why you're staying in the community. I mean, if you're feeling quite lonely in the community, and there's probably high chance that you're not gonna love it in that community and would leave at some point. So that's what the intent to reside is trying to find out, right? So do you have this high probability that you're going to be staying, living here in the community with us? So any form of ties, whether, here in the zoo, like, we have a lot of trails during summer that's really nice, like hiking trails. Are you the type that would enjoy that? We have a very long winter here in Sault Ste. Marie. So do you enjoy outdoor activities during winter? Do you go snowboarding? Do you go skiing, cross country skiing, all that activities? Whether you do it on your own or you do it by group, at least something that could demonstrate that you're enjoying what's happening in your community would be a good option. Okay. And then let's see, anything else? I think we've covered all of the questions for today. I think we've lost Mary right there. So I think we've covered all of the questions. So again, thank you again so much for joining us today. And we do hope you had gained a lot of information and valuable insights for this specific webinar. We also hope to see you in our future webinars next week. I'll be covering Atlantic Immigration Program. If that interests you, Jasmine will be releasing the sign-up sheet for that shortly as well. So join me again next week. And then the week after that, Express Entry, which is a very highly sought after program. So hopefully we'll see you again. So in the meantime, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and night. And again, we'll see you again in our next webinar. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful night. Bye.